Hello, welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things holistic. I am your host, Cheryl Lee. Today's guest is Josh Geiger from Hybrid Energetics. Josh has been vegan for 15 years. He has multiple degrees in plant and soil science and functional physiology. We sit down today to talk about maintaining an optimal physique with minimal exercise, developing a lifestyle system focused on mindset for success, his journey into plant-based eating, and his high-intensity, low-volume calisthenics approach to exercise, plus so much more. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Holistic Healer Podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Lee, and I'm super excited. Today's guest is Josh Geiger from Hybrid Energetics. So excited. He has such a long bio that I'm going to have to read this off of my iPad because it's really, really cool. All of the things that you have and that you do. You're a 15-year vegan. You have multiple degrees in plant and soil science, functional physiology, extended studies in sustainable agriculture, permaculture, and nutritional sciences. You've worked as a mycologist. You've been a natural builder for over a decade. And you've maintained an optimal physique with minimal exercise, which we're going to talk a lot about today, which I'm really excited to talk about. And you've developed a lifestyle system focused on mindset for success, plant-based diet, high intensity, low volume calisthenics, and a handful of foundational healthy lifestyle habits. So that's really cool. Like you really kind of embody the holistic lifestyle, how you live your life. And there you are in Bali, which is just another kind of spoke on that wheel, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It
for
was
sure.
it came out of necessity, I can say.
Really? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that is so cool. So I normally just like to start for my audience with a bit of a background of what was your journey like? Like, were you raised in a vegan household? Like, what was kind of your journey getting you to a vegan lifestyle? We can start with that.
Okay. No, I was raised in a pretty traditional Texas home. And
Okay.
so, my parents were both Christian. My dad a little bit more open-minded than my mother, which it definitely influenced my open-mindedness and the ability to question things and everything. And so
Yep.
kind of like most people in their late teens, early 20s, I went through a pretty dark angst period where I was
Hmm.
seeing so much that was wrong with the world, but not having solutions and not knowing why and not knowing what I could do about it, feeling somewhat apathetic. And to make a long story short, is around 20, I had a big shift. I moved to Austin, Texas. Before that, I was actually in school for guitar performance and jazz studies, doing like
Oh, wow.
professional guitar work, and it was just killing music for me. And so that was part of the sort of the angst that I was going through. And so I moved to Austin, Texas, where I rejoined my band, and I started having some real big breakthroughs spiritually and with my mental well-being and everything, and started to realize, some solutions and things that I could do, and really realizing some of the roots of so many of our cultural issues.
Yep.
And one of the big, and I actually went into for people from Austin that about a store, it's called Half Price Books. It's just a used bookstore. Maybe it's in more places than just Austin, but
Uh-huh.
I used to go in there, and I found this David Wolf book, actually. And it was a David Wolf book on superfoods. And
Mm.
it was just a really simple book that just talked about spirulina and goji berries and like bee pollen and other cool superfoods. And it inspired me and there to basically go raw overnight.
Wow.
And there was already a pretty strong raw community in Austin at that time. This is around
Uh-huh.
2008. And so I had a lot of support and somewhat direction in doing that. And so I immediately started eating raw. I was doing lots of yoga. Was very like in a spiritually focused place because I was
Uh-huh.
pretty much a single guy having a nice time in Austin, and
Yeah, right.
going raw and doing lots of yoga, like I said, and feeling really good. Just like feeling really good and really having a lot of shifts. Some of the health issues that I was dealing with basically resolved. Like I was having like kind of acne breakouts, not on just like on my face and stuff, but like on my
Yep.
legs and things like that, that I think were a result of probably the previous 20 years of American diet, just standard
Sure.
American diet, and acid buildup, and that stuff just trying and wanting to come out in some way or another. And that stuff basically just started resolving. My mindset improved even more. I was feeling very fresh, but I was also still dealing with, I wasn't doing it right. I was doing way too many raw vegetables and not enough focus on some of the more easy to digest kind of fruit
Right.
and more watery vegetables and things. I was still eating like raw cauliflower and raw broccoli as some of the
Yeah.
staples, because that's kind of like just what I knew from growing up.
Sure.
And what that kind of did for me was, it, even though I was having a lot of really cleansing and amazing effects from the diet, I was also dealing with too much digestive distress.
Yeah.
And so I know I needed to shift something, but I just kept on moving forward with it. And synchronistically, I met my wife around the age of 23. So I was raw for maybe a couple of years before I met my wife at the age of 23.
Hmm.
And we both had such a strong shared vision. She had been vegan already for 10 years. And we had such a strong shared vision for our life and like what we wanted to do for the planet and everything, that we really got married within 3 months or so of
Wow. Not
meeting one
fast.
another.
Hmm.
And the way that she had been, do you know the term macrobiotic?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so
Very familiar.
we're very foundationally, as our family, are rooted in the kind of macrobiotic philosophy, because
Hmm.
macrobiotics is goes far beyond just dietary recommendations. It's really, macrobiotic means macrobiotic, the great life, and
Okay.
it's the study and understanding of five element theory and yin yang philosophy, and the ability to recognize the different energetic qualities in food and lifestyle decisions, and the application of that knowledge or wisdom into your life, diet, and choices to create the most balanced life that you can, and
Wow.
to create the life that you want as well. That doesn't mean that you refrain from everything. Like if
Yeah.
you wanted to be a rock star, maybe you incorporate a little bit of, heroin or something in
Or
there, but
yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
you might die at 27. That's just,
Yeah. Right.
macrobiotics is knowing what you're doing,
Okay.
so that's,
I
so
didn't
we were
know that
married.
about macrobiotics.
Yeah, it's not
Interesting.
a super. I think that macrobiotics is really a fascinating topic, and some of my favorite books are written by these Japanese macrobiotic teachers. And
Wow.
the thing that happened with macrobiotics is that the old school guys didn't keep up with modern marketing,
Mm.
and it didn't really keep up with it. They didn't also update their knowledge,
Right.
even though there's some like amazing, super foundational scientific stuff with the macrobiotic diet. They didn't keep up with the plant-based doctors very well
Okay.
and get some more, like, some shifts. Like they still focused a little bit too much on oil and things like
Mm.
that, and we had some dogma and phobia of too much fruit and raw foods and things like that. They were very into, it was very Japanese cuisine,
Okay.
you know, brown rice, whole grains, cooked beans,
Yeah,
cooked
that's how I knew
vegetables.
it by. That's when you said macrobiotic, that's how I would have described it. Just
Yeah,
lots of brown rice, lots of cruciferous vegetables, that kind of thing.
exactly. And I actually think that it is a solid foundational dietary recommendation. Like it's very solid, and you can foundationally survive and thrive on that very well for 70, 80 years easy. Like, and there's a lot of these macrobiotic, there's even a couple 90-year-old teachers who are still around that we
Yeah,
consider
wow.
grandpas and
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that there's what my wife and I kind of came to in our own way, is that we still consider ourselves macrobiotic in the sense that we question everything. We question and look deeply into the energetic qualities, the five element theory, the effects of
Mm.
foods on organs. But we have experimented and have found great value into some things that were considered taboo in macrobiotics, such as high fruit, high
Got you.
raw, no oil, that sort of thing.
Okay. So you've kind of like modified it in a sense to be more applicable for your lifestyle. Would that be kind of fair to say?
Yeah, for our lifestyle and what we actually feel is leading towards optimal health. Because
Got you.
just with anybody in any lifestyle, people still have issues. It's like, and it's
Yeah.
hard to tell what's what in this day and age because we're dealing with so much environmental toxicity. We're dealing with genetic degradation of people through years of degradation of the soils, degradation of the foods,
Mhm.
the application of herbicides, pesticides, and everything over the last 100 years or so. And so sometimes it's not exactly super clear what's causing what.
Right.
But what you can see is whenever you start getting better, then you're going in a positive direction.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I just wanted to just ask a question about, you said the five elements.
Yes.
Can you define what that is?
So five element theory is based in ancient Chinese medicine, and it's a metaphor, but it's a metaphor that applies to the transformation of energy through these five elements. And it's
Okay.
fascinating because the metaphor applies to our organ systems, to facial diagnosis, to even astrology. My wife is very adept
Wow.
at an ancient Chinese astrology that was preserved by the Japanese called nine-star key feng shui astrology. And it
Wow.
has to do with the transformation of five elements through humans, basically human behavior, human personality, communication. But the metaphor is so beautiful that it applies directly to how energy transforms through nature. So, for example, in five element theory, you have fire, water, soil, wood, and metal.
Okay.
You have a nourishing cycle because everything has to be nourished by something, and you have a control or governing cycle because everything has to also be governed. This would be easier with like a little picture, but you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
imagine
yeah.
a pentagram, yeah.
Yeah,
And so
I can.
my wife's really good at walking this through, and I've been
Okay.
watching her and studying it with her for the last 10 years.
Wow,
So
so cool.
but yeah, basically, it's like you can imagine fire is governed by water. If fire gets too out of hand and the qualities of fire get too out of hand, things get too dry, things get devastated. But with water, it's able to keep that fire at bay. But without fire, things wouldn't transform. So
Okay.
fire governs wood, obviously. So, wood gets too out of hand, a forest gets too dense and stuff. Fire
Hmm.
comes in and controls that. So the fire governs the wood and it converts that into ash. That ash falls to the ground and nourishes soil. And
Wow.
we could talk through the whole governing cycle and the whole nourishing cycle, but it's really beautiful. And when you start looking into this, is also how the organ systems work. You have organs that the chi nourishes into that other organ system, and you have other organs that govern the overproduction or the overactivity of certain organ systems. And in Chinese medicine, basically all ailments and all issues can be observed and followed back to some imbalance in the chi in the body.
Hmm.
And this is all caused by either food, environmental issues, emotional trauma,
Yeah.
repression, all these sorts of things.
Wow. So the five elements, that goes hand in hand then with the macrobiotic? Like, I guess it would be more, if you're going to follow macrobiotics, it's almost like a lifestyle then, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
there's many facets of the whole macrobiotic culture. Much of it
Yes.
is rooted in Japanese culture,
Okay.
and so yeah, the facial diagnosis is part of it. Aspects of Chinese
Wow.
medicine, including nine-star key, feng shui astrology, five element theory, yin yang philosophy, spiralic theory, the idea that all energy, all charge is basically expanding and contracting all throughout the universe at all scales. This
Wow.
is spiralic
So
theory.
fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were to actually take a spiral and so you have a spiral like this, and if you were to take it and put it on its side, you would actually have what looks like a sine wave. So
Wow.
and if you were to take that same spiral and you were to chop it into 9 sections, like that, this is one aspect of the energy, and this is another quality of the energy, and this is another quality of the energy. And then once it comes back around, it's back at this cycle. but it's not the same because it's one spiral, it's one ring
Got
in.
you.
So that's going towards contraction. But what you have is in 9 star key, uh, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and each of those numbers is attributed a element as this energy traverses the spiral and transforms. And so,
Wow,
yeah,
it's
that's so you
fascinating.
can, when you get look into 9 star key, then you can actually, there's each person has a set of 3 numbers, which is their core energy, their communication energy, and their outward appearance, like what they appear like on the surface. And then there's a weekly cycle, a monthly cycle, a yearly cycle, a collective
Wow.
cycle, earthly cycle. It's really fascinating. It's a very fractal
Is this
type of.
is this something that you and your wife work with people to determine kind of what their I'm inclined to say what came to mind was like in Ayurveda, like your dosha, and but I'm not sure how that would be said in like Chinese medicine and in this philosophy. But is this something that you work with people to determine these different elements about themselves?
So my wife has done countless charts for people,
Yeah.
and has never really done it commercially or like for money exchange, besides just like um, really being an altruistic person, and just wanting to help families, help
Right.
people in
Yeah.
relationships and things like that. But we basically, if we meet a new person, especially if it's someone who's becoming our friend and who looks like they could be part of our network and community, we always do the 9 star key. And uh, we've done the 9 star key for all of our children. Like, we consciously conceived all
Wow.
of them. We actually consciously created the genders for our children as well,
How isn't
using
it
something called,
amazing?
yeah, using something called the Jonas method. That's something else. But be, people might say like, oh, that sounds like kind of overbearing and controlling, but or like contrived, or people have kind of given us a hard time at times. But the way that we feel is like, well, we feel like God gave us this
Yeah,
knowledge and this wisdom, and we feel inspired. When we define inspired to be the breath moving in, um,
sure.
to do this sort of work in order to create the most powerful, the most harmonious family as possible.
Wow, it's
Because if you
beautiful.
think about what creates humanity as a whole, like what creates a strong group, is for there to be every aspect of the zodiac in a community, every
Right.
aspect of the astrology in the community, so that everybody is getting nourished by somebody, everybody is getting governed to some extent by somebody, everybody is able to communicate because they have the person they communicate well to, and then that can actually be translated to the people they don't communicate so well with. And so we have chosen in our family to incorporate this knowledge and wisdom to
Yeah.
create as harmoniously a unit, as harmoniously and supportive a unit as possible, because we recognize that we may not be here one day.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that our kids will have all the support, they'll have each other, they'll have a
Wow.
strong
So
group
beautiful.
together.
That is
So
absolutely beautiful.
yeah, and it's really powerful because whenever we do it helps enlighten us in our own relationship, because if we can recognize that this is the energetic imprint, that my wife is always going to feel drawn to talk to me, and I might my actions, or even just washing the dishes the way I do it, may govern her and stuff, and we recognize those sorts of things, then we can have compassion for one another
Mm,
whenever we're not necessarily meeting each other's needs fully, and recognize that no one person is supposed to meet every person at one other person's needs.
right.
And we keep moving because we recognize that we're in an era of cultural schism and family schism,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and we're taking a really challenging step back towards reinstating the family unit, the
Mm,
extended family unit, and reinstating strong communities and things like that. And one aspect of that is learning to have compassion for one another through just
yeah.
acknowledging, energetically, I'm not designed to fulfill all those needs,
Mm,
but I know that I can talk to this person and they talk to you really well.
right.
These sorts of philosophies and or strategies in mind. So we do this, we apply 9 star key to our business relationships. And
Wow. Such
so,
an amazing tool.
yeah.
And also, I guess, it just allows for the awareness so that you're out of projecting all of your unresolved stuff, whatever that happens to be, onto others by bringing like an awareness and a light to that part of yourself, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. So, one thing I wanted to ask you, just kind of in looking over some of your posts and, looking into some of the things you do, do you mostly work with men when it comes to your programs when you're
S-
working one on one with somebody?
I have worked with both,
Okay.
and I just tend promote uh, to promote that I work with men more strongly because,
Yep.
especially like if you were to look at my niche, it's busy career
Yeah.
and family men
Yeah.
who want to have desirable health, desirable physique with minimal focus on the actual exercise and
Yeah.
focus on dieting and all these things, but really want to integrate a healthy lifestyle where they can focus on their altruistic works, their careers, and their families, and that their lifestyle creates fitness as a byproduct, essentially.
Right.
And so,
So,
since I
sorry.
relate most deeply with men,
Yeah.
and I think that that I can be the strongest model for men
Mm,
who are yearning for the same things, who are in
mhm.
similar situations. That's really what I promote. But I do, because I'm also a husband and support my wife a lot in her health. And, I do the majority of the cooking, and I've helped with, we've had three natural home births. No, four. Four of them were home births, and one was hospital, the first one.
Yeah. That was
Uh,
like me too. I had my first hospital and then I had two at home as well.
right. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so empowering. And,
Yeah.
and since I feel that one of my roles is to empower women, is to help support women to be empowered, like women empower
Yeah.
themselves, but I want to be supportive of that. And so I have that knowledge set and that skill set, and I have a deep experience into family dynamics. I
Yeah.
think that I do have a lot to offer women and families, but right
Yeah.
now I'm just like really promoting for the membership and the coaching side of things. I'm promoting, like, I want to help these men to develop their mindset, to become their best so that they can be the best for their families.
Yeah. One of the posts that you had made that really drew me to you, and actually it was the one where I was like, oh, I got to get this guy on my show, is the post that you made about, you had started talking about the masculine and the physique, guys taking steroids, extra protein, and even in your bio that you had sent me, just you had talked about this over exaggerated masculine physique being perpetuated by Hollywood and social media, and not being sustainable in most cases, is certainly not from a health standpoint. I mean, you can take these things, I guess, for a while, but at some point I feel like the body's going to push back and say enough, whether that's a heart attack or a stroke or whatever it happens to be. So I just wanted to ask you, like, I know you kind of in that little post you did talk about it, but how do you feel, like, why do you feel, if you just want to maybe extend on that a little bit, why so many men right now are feeling this need to go in the direction of steroids, trying to like level up to those they see on Instagram, not feeling comfortable in their own body? Like, where do you feel like the root of this is coming from?
I think that the root lies deeply in men feeling, I think that it lies in the root of the cultural schism, like we talked about before,
Yeah.
where men are not feeling deeply fulfilled by the works that they're doing, or not feeling like they're embodying true masculinity in a powerful way.
Mm,
And so, and this has to do with modern times where, so much of the work is on computers and office jobs and things, where
mhm.
if we want to just look at the in the past, what kind of behaviors or what kind of works were like very archetypically masculine, these would be builders, farmers, warriors,
Right.
doing and being protectors of the family, and this sort of thing. And I think that in modern times, a lot of those qualities have been lost and are being replaced by this kind of instant gratification
Mm,
mindset.
yeah.
And because this physique that I think that the physique is mostly drawn from what a warrior, like who would be the most developed, the most built person of old, and that would probably be a warrior because they would be spending lots of time practicing their craft. They would spend lots of time, possibly doing all kinds of body weight
Sure.
exercises and
Yeah,
things like
yeah, for
that.
sure.
But they would actually never really be the type of physique that we see today with like the really bodybuilder sort of
Mm,
like all the muscles accentuated
yes.
in a very swollen way, and that's not actually even an optimal warrior physique because you have to lug all that around and you get
Yeah.
extremely tired extremely quickly, and you also have to feed that lots of calories, and you also have to do consistent exercise to maintain that size. So we would really never even have seen that in the past, but
Yeah.
that physique was accentuated and exaggerated by Hollywood and this sort of
Mm,
like Hollywood character, this like action character or something like that,
yes.
and in bodybuilding and in things. And then social media in current times has perpetuated that
Yeah.
aspect, and it's kind of like the out of balance projection of masculinity. It's like the end result. This is what masculinity should look like,
Right.
and so then you have men who don't really know what is natural, what's natural masculinity, what's a natural physique, what's going to attract natural partners, natural
Yeah.
women, and things like that. And so they go for what they see on Instagram and things like that. And
Yeah.
you have also the situation where you have lots of women on the other side of the spectrum who
Yeah.
are accentuating the and exaggerating what femininity is, which, like, if you were to
Totally.
think of the archetypes of femininity, it's like nurturing, fertility, these sorts of things, wide hips, large breasts, and then they
Yeah.
take that to, obviously beauty. They take that and exaggerate it. So then you have women who are accentuating beyond what's natural, and there's
Yeah.
an obsession around that. And those women are attracted to the exaggerated masculine physique, and those men are
Yeah.
attracted to the exaggerated feminine. And so men or boys who don't remember what's natural, who don't remember what's truly valuable, and
Mm,
who don't have these natural masculine works that already do something with all that testosterone. If you build all day, believe me,
yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
not going to want to go. If you do, go to the, if you're, I've been a builder for the last almost 12 years. If you go to work and you're in the sun and you're lifting heavy materials and you're building all day, you don't really feel like going and expending the last of your energy in the gym,
Sure.
especially if you have a family that you got to go and cook for.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's the void that they're trying to fill. And the way they're doing that is going and lifting lots of weights, eating lots of protein, and at the extreme, taking steroids.
And then also, do you feel that there's the empty kind of, maybe a feeling of insecure, like deep insecurity, a need to be validated, to be accepted? Like I found that this is kind of the norm in that when you start to really delve a little bit deeper, it's like it goes the roots are much deeper than what it appears on the surface. That there's a lot of, usually there's maybe a lot of trauma wounding that's never been looked at, never been unpacked. And so, using these substances and over exaggerating themselves is just a way to kind of numb out in a sense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
that there's also a deep longing to be loved and accepted by every person. And whenever it's the mainstream culture, like this is the norm, then people will want to conform to that to naturally be loved and accepted by the tribe. It's a survival
Yeah.
program. It's like if you're not
Right.
loved and accepted by the tribe in the wild back in the day, which is like the root of our reptile
Yeah.
brain, then you're dead,
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
thing.
For sure. For sure. Well, I interviewed Dan McDonald. I don't know if you follow him, the life regenerator.
Oh yeah,
He's,
huh?
yeah, it's really amazing. And he talks, now being 50, it's kind of like, yeah, of course there's some muscle loss and you're not so like the idea isn't to be, well, how jacked up can I get? It's like, how can I be functional? How can I move my body in a way that is, that's allowing me to have a health span, right? Not just like a lifespan. And like in that sense of like the longevity aspect of it, because oftentimes we see in the fitness community, especially in the bodybuilding community, they're not living long lives. And if they are living long lives, they're usually wrought with things like arthritis or cancer, heart attacks, all of these things. And I find it really interesting that the need to look a certain way, that the exterior is becomes more important than health, that you're willing to basically sacrifice the health of your being and moving forward in longevity. You're basically making a trade-off with looking a certain way. So yeah. So with the one of the things that I saw that you had mentioned was high intensity, low volume calisthenics. So can you explain what that is?
Yes, so the low volume means for me doing a maximum of about 30 to 40 minutes per workout
Okay.
and doing that only 3 days a week or every other day. So maximum 4 days a week. But really it adds up to about 2 hours a week max.
Okay.
Um,
Wow.
yeah. And the high intensity aspect of it is that with I basically only do four main exercises with variations of each exercise. I do pushing, which is different variations of pushing pull up, pushing
Okay.
exercises, pulling, squatting, and then some core exercise.
Okay. And this is no weight, right? You're not, there's no weights involved here. You're using body weight. Is that
Just
right?
body weight, and if I actually,
Okay.
the only time I ever add like some rocks or something, just something in
Uh-huh.
nature, is if I'm doing squats, because it's
Okay.
your legs are so strong, those muscles are so strong, it's really hard to push the legs to exhaustion.
Okay.
So if you add some rocks or things, it's not even super necessary. It's just if I want to, have some fun and do something different, I'll add like a big 20, 30 pound rock and do some squats like that
Yeah, sure.
to help me not have to do 100 squats. I can do, 50 instead.
Right. Got you.
But the high intensity aspect is that for each exercise, it's key to push all the way to exhaustion, meaning you can't get that last rep out, or at least within 3 reps of that. So,
Okay.
because really where the majority of the intensity, the majority of the, the breakdown of the muscle happens, because what we know is that in order to grow muscle, you have to break down the muscle. You have to push it past its capacity a little
Right.
bit, and then with your rest and proper nutrition, it'll rebuild slightly bigger and stronger than before.
Right.
The majority of that breakdown happens during the grinding reps. That's where you've already done your push-ups all the way to,
Okay.
past the smooth ones, and you're now grinding through the last 10 or 15, whatever it is for you. And so when you do that for these different exercises, and you do it only 3 days a week, and you do it
Hmm.
like maybe you get in 3 sets for each exercise per workout, you really maximize the amount of growth and improvement and strength that you can develop
Wow.
from that.
Okay. And is calisthenics going to be as, for example, someone who's aging? Like I'm interested in these things because I'm over 50 now, so I want to like make the best program for myself as far as longevity goes. And of course, in the literature, resistance training is, so important for bone density. So will you find the same effects by doing calisthenics as you would by lifting, like going into the gym and doing deadlifting, for example, in terms of bone density and maintaining that as you age?
Yeah, I think that as I was saying before, I was saying that I can't compare apples to apples,
Sure.
because in weight training, you would be lifting more weight than you normally would be in any sort of
Right.
calisthenic situation. However, with calisthenics, for each of the movements, the pushing, pulling, and squatting, you can do variations that increases the resistance for that movement. So for example, if you do enough squats, eventually you're going to build the muscles around your legs and your joints and everything to be able to do one-legged squats. And so now you're going to be putting a lot of resistance on those
Right.
bones and joints. And you're also going to be developing, fortifying muscle complex around the joints that you never would with weight training, because you can imagine you're standing on one leg, you're going down into a pistol squat, is what it's called. You're
Right.
having
Yep.
to do so much balance and micro compensation for that balance that it's super strengthening for the joint.
Yeah.
So in that way, there's more positive aspects to the calisthenic side of things because it really trains you to be as holistically balanced and strong in a
Mm.
natural way in your body.
Yeah.
And it also, the nice thing about calisthenics is that you can still get injured by doing calisthenics, but it's usually not like a tear. Like all of a sudden, like with weight training, you might be
Yes.
like, oh, just tore my bicep. With calisthenics, it could be like you don't get enough recovery or you tweak something and you get a little
Right.
tendonitis and you pull back the reins a little bit on the exercise, you heal and you can continue on. So in that way, I also find that it's optimal, especially as one ages.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I would imagine that the injury rate is a lot less doing calisthenics as it would be, lifting weights. And I actually, over the last few weeks, I was looking into calisthenics just because, it just seems like it allows for natural movements of the body as well, that you're in a functional, you're lifting or you're doing things, well, maybe not lifting, but you're doing body movements that are natural. You're not kind of going outside of the range of what would be natural for the body to do. So, which is another thing that looks to me like I want to start doing it actually. I think it looks really amazing. How is it when, like with the men that you coach, if they come from a background of, say, lifting weights, being really heavy in resistance training, do you find that there is a little bit of a pushback to incorporate calisthenics just from like the maybe their idea of what it means to masculine, going to the gym, like lifting a whole bunch of weight as opposed to using body weight? Do you find that you get some resistance to that at all?
So far, no, because
Okay,
we
that's really
do
cool.
So far, no, because we do one workout together. Like I do live
Uh-huh.
workouts with my guys sometimes,
Okay.
and they're like, "Wow, like I
Yeah,
am
I can imagine.
just as pumped and just as like exhausted as I would after spending an hour in the gym and doing a bunch of
Yeah.
isolative muscle groups." And then they see my physique, which my physique is not. I'm not a real big guy. Like I'm
Mm.
160. I go between 160 and 165 pounds, and sustain this uh, on all plant foods for the last 15
Yeah.
years, and this minimal exercise calisthenics, where I have gone months and months where we were moving from some place to another where I wasn't doing these calisthenics. And so it's not like I've developed this from 15 years of doing steady calisthenics.
Yeah.
Really, if you do this, you find your optimal weight through going plant based, which we can talk about how that's so easy to
Yep.
achieve optimal weight when you do this whole food lifestyle. Uh, and you start doing the type of calisthenics I'm talking about, you're going to see such a massive improvement in your physique in 6 months or less. You'll
Wow.
see it in 3 months, and in 6 months you'll be transformed. That
Wow.
you'll see it's not like you have to do this stuff for years and years at a time to see the benefit. It's high
Right.
intensity, it's effective.
Yeah, no kidding. So the people that you're working with, are you also incorporating the plant-based diet into the calisthenics program as well?
Yes. So
Okay.
the tenets of my course or my coaching is I have a foundational lifestyle program, and it's basically
Okay.
mindset for success, which is just getting into people say manifestation, but I like to
Mm.
simplify it a little bit more than and I call it solution based thinking,
Okay.
because we can basically be thinking one of two ways. We can be in problem based thinking or solution based thinking. If we're in problem based thinking, that's the default, because problem based thinking
Right.
is the survival brain looking for everything that can go wrong, looking for the enemy, looking for the danger so it can isolate it, it can fight it, run from it, or hide from
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just an old way of thinking, and it doesn't propel us powerfully in the direction of our goals. It has us basically trying to fix everything before we start at times
Right.
and tiptoeing forward. So the
Hmm.
other way of thinking is solution-based thinking, and that's leaning forward into looking for the opportunities that are around us all the time. And
Right.
because we know that the brain is selective and it finds more of what it's looking for, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's more of what it's looking for around. It doesn't mean that there's all of
Yeah.
a sudden, because you think in solutions, that there's more solutions than problems now around.
Mm-hmm.
It just means now you're finding what you're looking for.
Got
Like
you.
if
Yeah.
you're thinking about buying a red car, you're going to start seeing more red cars. It's just
Yeah, totally.
it's relevant that you will naturally start to move more powerfully in the direction of your goals with this small mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one powerful aspect of the mindset I teach. It also gets into looking at the negative mental chatter and this sort of thing.
Sure.
And then the next aspect is, there's basically four foundational pillars. There's mindset, there's dietary optimization. That gets into the whole foods, plant-based diet, fat
Yep.
around 20%. We can talk about that. This is just what the accumulative nutritional data to date shows us about optimal longevity, optimal insulin sensitivity for
Yep. Mm-hmm.
pancreatic health and all of this, and optimal energy levels, and still being able to get sufficient protein to create the Bruce Lee physique, etc.
Right.
So that's foundational because I really want to teach people that to find their optimal weight and then build the muscle beneath that. It's one with the other.
Got you.
It's a combination of things. You'll naturally find your optimal weight if you choose this whole food plant-based diet with the fat in that range.
Okay.
And then you add in the high intensity, low volume calisthenics, and you're naturally going to build the muscle beneath those fat layers. And as you lose the weight and build the muscle, you're going to see massive transformation in a short period of time. And then the last tenet of the course program is a lifestyle habits course
Mm.
where we teach about sleep optimization, about
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of fasting, which is it's not about having to fast or do intermittent fasting. It's more so the foundation is not eating after a certain period before you
Right.
go to bed
Yeah,
so that
for sure.
your organs can rest and you can get optimal
Yeah.
sleep and these sorts of things. And if you want, I have recommendations about fasting, intermittent fasting. I've got a lot of experience in my own fasting journey.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Is the diet that you recommend, is it protein centric? Meaning, are you recommending like a higher protein plant-based diet to like for the purpose of creating a physique that you talk about, kind of the Bruce Lee physique? Is that diet going to look like a little bit higher in protein? Like, what are the ranges typically, percentage wise, if fat's lying at about 20%?
Yeah, I would say it's the opposite of protein centric. I
Yeah.
literally don't focus on protein at all.
Yeah.
The focus is it's definitely carb centric. You want to say
Yeah.
that? It's whole food centric. The key, basically with diet, you're going to be getting your energy from one of two places. It's going to be from fat or it's going to be from sugars. And then if you're
Right.
doing a combination of fat and sugars, you're going to get sick at some point because the body just doesn't deal with those two types of calories efficiently.
Right. Yeah.
And you get insulin resistance, and we can talk about
Hmm.
what that's all caused by and everything later. But I, so the percentages would be, and that I emphasize for people is aim for enough calories.
Hmm.
If you're in a bit of a deficit while you transition, that's fine. You're just going to have to get used to the fiber and the extra
Right.
water and fiber and the satiation you're going to feel in the stomach. And eventually you're going to level out and you're going to get plenty of calories. It'll be fine. And if you're in a caloric deficit during the weight loss process, that's great too. Like you're not
Hmm.
going to starve. Everything's going
Right.
to be
Right.
groovy. But focus on 20, maximum 20% fat from calories as a foundation. Like
Right.
if you have a day where there's a birthday party, you eat some birthday cake
Sure.
and you go 30, 35, whatever, that's not, health is what you do every day. We're building foundations. You're going to
Right.
be
Got
okay.
you.
But pay attention to what happens after the birthday cake day. You're going to have probably lower energy and feel more sluggish the next day
Yeah.
because your body's going to have to be producing more insulin. You're going to have a harder time getting the sugar into the cells to create ATP, and you're just going
Yeah.
to have to be, your liver's going to be burdened by the excess fat and da da da. So 20% fat, around 65% carbohydrates,
Hmm.
and 15% or so protein.
Yeah. I love
And
that. Yeah.
And as long as you're getting a diverse amount of plant foods, you're going to be getting your full amino acid profile, no problem. And as
Hmm.
long as you're eating some walnuts and ideally a tablespoon of ground chia or flax per day, you're going to be totally fine on ALA that converts to all the other omega-3s, including DHA that you
Yeah,
need,
for sure.
etc. And then I also recommend, for safety's sake, a handful of supplements. I'm saying, if you're especially in more northern climates, vitamin D basically is, epidemically deficient in
Yeah,
people.
absolutely.
So I recommend some vitamin D. I recommend some B12, basically for anybody, because
Hmm.
even omnivores, there's more omnivores are deficient in B12 than even vegans at this point, and
Yeah.
it has to do more with absorption and gut health issue than it does even with quantity of intake. But there's just some things that I like to cover the bases of. It helps people feel safe. It helps us make sure that our bases are covered, especially if we're dealing with children and things.
Hmm.
But yeah, so those are the macros, and those are the kind of supplements I suggest.
And following kind of like where we started, kind of coming back to the macrobiotic, what are you in your personal diet throughout the day? Are you incorporating like a certain percentage of raw foods and juices, for example, or is it just kind of like whatever happens to be? Is it like, do you follow a more structured program, or do you kind of organically just kind of let the day, you know, happen, and whatever happens to, come across your path in terms of eating? Obviously it's going to be plant-based whole food, but how do you structure or not structure your personal day?
So it is structured in the sense that I do the same thing every day, but it's
Okay.
based upon hunger,
Mm.
appetite, the desire, like what I actually feel like eating in that moment, what I feel nourished by. Um, but it's not like I'm calculating macros or anything like that. So
Got
in the
you.
mornings, I like to drink some water. I'm not like like a big person who's drinking gallons of distilled water. I like to
Yeah.
get a nice bit of hydration of some lime water, maybe a little sea salt, and some shilajit. I like some extra minerals. I think
Mm.
plant-based people can deal with, can anybody can really benefit from some added minerals in the diet.
Sure.
And then I crave watermelon, so I'll munch watermelon in the morning. If I'm going to work, like if I'm going to my building job,
Hmm.
I'll a lot of times I won't eat again after some watermelon until lunch. And then I always pack my own lunch. It's always a whole grain. We pretty much do quinoa and millet as our grains these days.
Okay. Hmm.
It's either quinoa or millet, some beans, and then some salad with a little bit of walnut on top. And then we
Wow.
like some coconut aminos, a little bit of Bragg's liquid aminos, that sort of thing,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
for some flavor. And I like hot sauce, some
Yeah.
spicy. And then for dinner, I come home and it's the whole family's hungry, and we do another meal like that. It's going to be whole
Nice.
grains, beans, cooked or raw veggies. And then anytime that I'm hungry or even thirsty or just feeling like that need, I'll drink when I'm thirsty. I'll eat fruit when I'm hungry. Like that's the only thing I really do is
Yeah. Wow.
eat
Amazing.
fruit to snack. And I just make sure to keep, I always do fruit separate from meals.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do a meal, if I eat some fruit, I do it. I wait 30 minutes to an hour to eat a meal
Yeah.
after that. If I eat a meal and I feel like some fruit, I wait at least an hour after a meal
Yeah.
to munch any fruit.
Absolutely. Yeah. The food combining is like huge. Is that like a tenet too of macrobiotics, is like proper food combining, or not really?
You know, they may touch on that a little bit. They definitely, I think, recommend not to do fruit with cooked food.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they focus so much on the whole grain beans, vegetables, seaweeds, and
Hmm.
a high focus on chewing really well,
Uh,
which is actually a
mm,
really good recommendation. There's some science to
yeah.
that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not one of their emphases, because there's not a lot of foods incorporated that would be really contraindicated together in the macrobiotic
Got you.
recommendation.
Got you. So I want to ask, like, what brought you to Bali? How did that happen?
Well, it's always one of those stories where it's like, okay, what domino do I go back to?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, right. Of course, it's all working for the greater plan of what's unfolding.
and so much synchronicity that
Sure.
led us here. But I guess we could go back. Like my wife and I have been had our eyes on Bali for before we came, like 6 or 7 years, and there's a very famous bamboo school here, like bamboo building school. That was kind of one of our big inspirations was that I
Uh-huh.
would go to this school and learn how to build with bamboo. And so I've been a builder for over 10 years, and I became a natural builder 6 years ago or so, and I
Wow.
built a handful of houses out of timber frame, straw bale infill, clay plaster, and lime plaster,
Wow.
interiors and exteriors, back in Nevada City, California.
Wow.
And so we were in Nevada City, California. I was a natural builder. We, let's see, we were gonna go to Costa Rica, and so like we got this opportunity and some contracts to go do some building in Costa Rica, and we were packing to leave Nevada City, and literally the whole COVID thing hit, and we
Okay,
just
wow.
barely got back to Texas to come and see our family, to bring our belongings so we could springboard to Costa Rica from there. Well, the borders shut down, and we ended up, long story short, staying in Texas for 2 years, where
Okay.
I was just doing conventional remodel. I remodeled my grandparents' house because they passed away while we were there, and it happened to where we would pack and we'd be ready to jump on a plane and they'd shut the border, and then we would
Oh
like
my gosh.
unpack,
Yeah.
and it happened like 3 or 4 times. It was crazy, like the amount of shit we had to
Wow.
go through, even
No
transferring our
kidding.
tickets. And we got a window. We had an opportunity to come, uh, and we jumped on a plane with our belongings and 4 children at the time, and we flew out here to Bali, and we had our most recent son, Yeshi, a month
Yeah.
after we arrived.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the work that I came here to do didn't pan out because of COVID. All the money dried up,
Sure. Yeah.
and the contracts fell apart, and it was scary and stressful and everything. But just as so many other opportunities, it's like the inspiration or the opportunity is presented. You take the leap of faith,
Yeah.
a step falls beneath your feet, even though it doesn't look like the step you were thinking it was going to be, and
Yeah.
it brings you to the next powerful, amazing opportunity. And so
Yeah.
that's where I am now. I became a partner in a business called BioArc, where we do a very special kind of natural building, where basically based upon the natural materials, the specific geometric shape, and the placement on the land, we are able to accumulate biologically beneficial charge or energy in the space, that is measurable with sensitive electronic devices, and also
Wow.
corroborated by our ability to more efficiently and rigorously germinate seeds inside the structure.
Wow.
So we get readings inside our structures that are similar to what the readings you would get in the center of a forest.
So that's just such an amazing story, and just kind of like following the path and just like what's the next level of unfolding and just trusting and surrendering, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been talking about that a lot on my podcast lately, just about this notion of just really surrendering to what is, and just, but, taking the action when it's presented, and it's
Yeah,
just trust. And when you trust in that, it's like it lands you in sometimes maybe not exactly where you thought you might be, but it's, where you're supposed to be, which is amazing and beautiful. I love that.
yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. So you are, I mean, you embody, honestly, for all the people that I've had on my show, you are the embodiment of what it means to be holistic. Like, I mean, it's just really such a beautiful thing to see you and your wife and your children and how you're living your life and all of these different aspects that you're bringing in, and to create this harmonious, holistic lifestyle. It's really, really beautiful. So I just want to ask, I always ask my guests the same question. I'm going to ask it to you. And it is, what is your authentic life print. What is your unique expression in the world as Josh?
Let me think. I think that my unique expression, my unique gift is that I I feel that I've been gracefully bestowed a vision and gracefully bestowed a memory of what is possible uh, for humans to live, what's possible for humans to live in a connected, satisfying, purposeful,
Shoot,
meaningful way.
I think I lost you there for a sec.
Okay.
Start over.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
I was really listening. I want to know what that is. It's amazing.
Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I think that my unique gift, my unique what was the can you prompt that one more time?
What is your authentic life print or your unique expression in the world as Josh?
I think that my authentic expression in this world is that I feel that I have been gracefully bestowed a vision and gracefully bestowed a memory of what is possible for humans to live in a truly connected, truly satisfying, and purposeful, meaningful, and even blissful way.
Hmm.
And I think that my gift is the ability to articulate that vision to make powerful steps in that direction. As challenging and as scary at times as it is, that I was gifted this vision and I was gifted the courage and the discipline to make steps in that direction, knowing that I might never fully see that come into my
Hmm.
reality, but that I can make huge leaps for my children and for their
Wow.
children
Yes.
and for future generations. So I
Wow.
have a little saying, and it's I lean into the vision so gracefully bestowed and surrender, and I bow and surrender to whatever unfolds. So that basically just means that I lean into life with intent, and then I
Yes.
surrender to whatever happens. I don't attach to it because it's always different than you expect.
Absolutely. Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. So, where can people find you if they want to work with you, if they want to do your program? What's the best way for people to get a hold of you to work with you?
Right now, the best way to get a hold of me is on the Facebook. You can find me Josh Geiger, and then I have a group called Hybrid Energetics Whole Organic Health group,
Okay.
where I basically am have a library of all the free content that I put out, including some cool PDFs and things. And then also on the Instagram, it's the handle is at hybrid lower dash whatever that's called lower score underscore
Underscore.
energetics. Yeah,
Yeah,
hybrid
and
underscore energetics.
okay, and I'm going to link all of that below in the show notes. And so, do you work one-on-one with people? Like if people want to hire you to work like just not in a group setting, but just one-on-one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer a membership. It's called the Shred Club membership, and that includes all the courses that I do and some weekly group calls and some other goodies. And then there's the upgrade is to do. I have a 90-day one-on-one transformational program, and then people can also just book one-on-one calls if they want a little extra guidance, something like that. But the main two things are the membership and the one-on-one coaching.
Okay. And this could be for someone also, like if they want to maybe gain some weight and maybe put some muscle on in that sense. It's not just for losing weight, I would imagine.
Absolutely, it's about optimizing.
Okay.
It's about optimizing your physique.
Okay. Wow. It's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I've really enjoyed this conversation and I'll link all of your contacts in the show notes and like I'm excited to reach out to you. So it's amazing.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Josh.